Charlie shifted uncomfortably.
I don't believe this is a little
The heavy metal man.
excessive.
Lucifer turned around to look at his butler. Prem, it's just a pond for my ducks, okay? With a questioning look, the imp gazed past his master towards a lake-sized pond in the center of the royal castle. Preminger didn't even want to think about the amount of royal garden as well as unusable space that was used up on Lucifer's whim by this endeavor. Perhaps Preminger was too lenient on his master. Perhaps sometimes he should say no with more energy, so Lucifer understood that maybe this idea is beyond the realm of acceptability. So, what now? Asked Lucifer with the brightest of smiles, after he placed his first rubber ducky into the lake. Inhaling patiently through his crooked mouth, Preminger returned a questioning look to Lucifer. What I mean is, I had the idea, and it looks great. It doesn't, thought the imp. It's just a big water hole. But just filling a big undecorated pool with rubber duckies, that's a little
Childish.
I wouldn't say childish, Prem, but it's close.
How about idiotic, sire?
Yeah. I can accept idiotic. It took Lucifer 3 minutes of silence until, hey! And so it fell onto Preminger to create a natural, beautiful lake. Not as punishment, of course. It simply fell upon his duties as the diligent caretaker of the castle and butler of the King of Hell. Thankfully, Preminger was hiding a lot beneath his frail imp shell, so he managed. Albeit it did annoy him at first, as, especially in Hell, it was quite rare to find water. And things to put in it. Thankfully, due to an effort by the V's, a group of highly influential overlords, an ancient cavern had been uncovered and made accessible to the public. The place was called the Cold Storage, a cave roughly half the size of the pentagram. It was filled with deep lakes of glowing water, small shanty towns inhabited by sinners and hellborn alike. As the name implies, the weather there was cool, the air thick with the water's mist. Originally only accessible via 3 small entrances within the pentagram's sewer systems. Sure, some demons had access to it, but it was only thanks to the V's that opened up an artificial entrance, making it a true tourist attraction, especially since its denizens were such interesting creatures. An area of hell, which had barely modernized, was like a place carved out of a nightmare. Malformed demons, strange flora and fauna that was mostly unknown. And it was here Preminger began gathering the materials for the naturification of the castle's lake, taking rocks, natural underwater soil, and plants, even hellfish, creating a little ecosystem based entirely on Hell's most interesting place. Glowing mushrooms, blue-colored moss, it truly looked like someone ripped off an especially beautiful piece of the cold storage and just slapped it into the royal gardens. And Preminger saw that what he did was great. Satisfied with the butler's work, Lucifer had watched the progress. And when it was finally done, however, he did have something to complain about. Prem, something is missing, he said, a finger on his chin as he made a grimace.
Sir, the project isn't finished until you're pleased.
Lucifer's eyes darted towards the 2 yellow orbs that were Premenger's eyes. As always, the fallen angels just couldn't get a read on him, and without saying another word, Lucifer walked forward, pulled out a rubber ducky with scuba gear from his coat, and placed it on the water, and watched the thing paddle away. Perfect! Lucifer's heart fluttered. Giggling, his entire body wiggled.
Well, sire, I deeply apologize for my oversight.
It's okay, Prim. Not everyone can be as perfectly brilliant as me. I'm hungry.
Very well, sire. What would you like to eat?
Lucifer thought for a moment and then grinned excitedly. Charlie told me this absolutely amazing sounding jambalaya recipe. Can you make that? I'll send you the details. Preminger nodded. As the two men turned around, beginning their path back into the castle's stronghold. Though, as they left the garden behind, they failed to notice long, slender fingers emerging from the perfectly calm water. Quickly, and without causing any disturbance in the liquid, the toy was dragged beneath the water. An uninvited guest, having accidentally brought into the lake. You, having been mistaken for a beautiful decorative rock. It was over the next few days that Lucifer and his butler discovered that any duck placed on the water would vanish overnight, as well as the fish population slowly being reduced. It led to the butler setting up a security camera that kept constant watch over the water, as well as Lucifer no longer being allowed to put duckies on the pond. At least until the mystery was solved. Problem was, the glow algae that covered the water's surface was beautiful, sure, but made it rather difficult to see the clear water beneath. And Prim was not going to risk the health of the fish by pumping them out temporarily.
Sire, I do believe we should try another ducky,
suggested Preminger in Lucifer's workshop. It was a great idea. An idea Lucifer, heavy-hearted, had to agree with. And as he stood at the lake, he sniffled, holding up his fierce-looking rubber ducky. Your service will go into the history books, Captain Puddles. Lucifer started weeping as he placed the ducky into the pond. The two remained there for a minute as the ducky paddled forward, until it reached the middle of the lake and remained there. And their eyes widened with surprise when after a while your fingers appeared from beneath the surface. Lucifer needed to be held back by Preminger as he screamed, "No, Captain Puddles!" The hand the fingers belonged to snapped around the ducky, immediately pulling it down.
That is the confirmation we need, sire.
You have to save him, please! Preminger inhaled. He couldn't refuse a direct order like this. Preminger snapped his fingers, and in an instant his butler clothes were replaced with scuba gear.
Jesus, Prim.
Lucifer took a step back as the butler approached the water. How were you hiding all this cake in all of those years? Confused, Neem turned around to look at his master.
Pardon, sire.
Nothing. And without further ado, the imp walked into the water. It took Lucifer a minute, maybe two, to realize he just sent his precious butler into the depths of a lake with a monster in it. Jeez, he was the king of hell. Shouldn't he be the one to leap into it? God damn it, cursed Lucifer. This could have been a cool moment for him. Nevertheless, he marched over to a nearby garden bench and waited patiently. That was until the water shook. And curiously, Lucifer stood up, only to be met by the sight of Preminger carrying a large rock over his head. with one hand, and a rather bored expression.
I apologize, but the ducky has seen better days. But I have discovered the culprit, sir,
he said, slamming the rock on the floor before him. It had a beautiful spiral pattern, and had been one of Lucifer's personal favorite additions to the pond, even though he couldn't see it most of the time due to the glowing algae. On closer inspection, there was a hole with something white pushing against it from the inside. He didn't notice that before. So, is this like...
It is a snail woman, sir. A common pest in the cold storage. I deeply apologize for not inspecting the rock more thoroughly.
Curiously, Lucifer poked the white flesh. It was slimy with a bit of a waxy texture. The meat churned and moved, pulling further into the shell. Snail woman? He asked after a few seconds of staring at the hole.
I assumed it was empty. Usually you find lift-in shells at the water's edge, but this one was submerged. I assume she accidentally fell in.
You meanwhile heard the men's muffled conversation barely from inside your shell. To hide from poachers, you had slid with your shell into the water and couldn't get out. It had been a very long time spent underwater. Well, then again, you never asked to be kidnapped. Meanwhile, you heard the men's muffled conversation barely from inside your shell. You didn't ask to be kidnapped, though much appreciated. Like all denizens of the cold storage, you had just appeared there one day after your death as a human, scared in a new, slimy, white body which had its own needs and biology. You're forced to adjust on your own, get used to it. You had quickly realized that leaving your shell was dangerous due to roaming bands of cannibalistic hellborn demons who hunted your kind for sport. It was called shell cracking, and the winners were allowed to do whatever they wanted to the defenseless snail woman inside. Your kind was vulnerable, not having any direct defense. You had a human-like body with slightly elongated arms and fingers, and just below your navel it turned into a slug-like, slimy appendage. Your kind crawled through, dragging themselves across the ground using your hands. Reproductive organs came in form of a V-shaped hole a few inches below your navel, at the melting point of your human half and snail half. It was also where your kind felt the most pain. Your entire body was white, like bleached wax, very smooth, squishy, almost flabby and soft. Even though your kind spent their time submerged or crawled inside your shell, most of the time, when outside, your skin was covered in a translucent slime. Your body had the appearance of a woman covered from head to toe. And overall, your body had the appearance of a woman covered from head to toe in wax. What appeared to be long, beautiful white hair, stuck together by wax, was actually just hypersensitive skin, making it appear always wet. Making it appear like wet hair, even when dry. It allowed your kind to feel vibrations in water. Above the surface, however, its sensitivity lessened with dryness. Since you were the only snail woman living in the pond you had spawned at in hell, you were forced to learn the ropes yourself. You learned how your new body functioned, and how thanks to your changed taste buds and really sharp teeth, raw fish that you caught by hand tasted quite great. Not that bad for eternal punishment, really. If it wasn't for the boredom, of course. Your only interactions, or lack thereof, was in the form of the poachers looking for your kin. You likely were too afraid to even try to interact with them. So you learned everything by simply listening to them talk. That this place was, in fact, hell. Not some funny metaphor or symbolism, it was literally hell. Even though it was quite pretty, as well as cold. Definitely not what you would think hell would be. Thinking these demons were hunters having kidnapped you, you had retreated as far as you could. Thinking Lucifer and Preminger were poachers having kidnapped you, you had retreated as far as you could into your shell, your white, shiny eyes glimmering through the opening. "Oh, hello there," said Lucifer with an inviting smile as he saw your surprisingly pretty face. He didn't expect that.
"Sire, please just..."
Preminger was interrupted. "Quiet, Prim. I've decided I want to get to know her."
"Very well, sire. Shall I transport her inside?"
"Why don't we ask her?" Defeated, Prim sat down next to his master, while Lucifer tried to coax you out of your shell. "Hey, I'm Lucifer, King of Hell." Like that would convince you to come out, thought Prim. "Who are you?" Luckily for the butler, just as this was about to get awkward, his pocket watch made a little ting, indicating it was time to prepare a meal.
"Sire, I shall have prepared dinner for the evening. I do hope you know what you're doing."
Sure. Lucifer wasn't even listening anymore. And so the butler left his master with a concerned sigh, with what he considered a wild animal. Even though you didn't consider yourself one, you still had your mind mostly intact. Lucifer sat there, like a child trying to coax their turtle to come out of their shell, with the dumbest of smiles. His patience for sinners having dramatically increased since the incident with Adam at his daughter's hotel. And, at least right now, he was thinking of surprising Charlie by giving her a new guest to redeem, even though he didn't even know why you were down here to begin with. And then an idea came to him. He leaned away from your hole. There had been some plants growing nearby, chief among them some grain. Picking one of the long flowers, he held it up to your opening. Gently he began poking it into your hole, and your entire body shook as you felt the plant poke your butt. Almost immediately you grabbed the intruding object. "Oh, a little fighter, aren't we?" "Weren't you cursed enough?" Finally, the plant snapped, causing Lucifer to chuckle. "Come on, I'm not gonna hurt you." You pouted. "Yeah, right. Satan of all people wouldn't hurt you." And then he stood up, perhaps finally having lost his patience. Curiously, you lowered your head and also your guard. Still, you heard him step behind you, and then you watched for the hole as you were lifted into the air. Your eyes widened, and then your shell was turned upside down. He was shaking you, your head splatting against your shell's walls until you placed both hands on your cheeks as a dampener. But he was shaking hard enough you could feel your grip of your snail tail loosen, and then your fingers appeared, holding onto the edges of the hole, trying to stay inside. "Please, stop." You tried to shout. Your voice was quiet and hoarse after not having used it for so long. But thankfully, he stopped. You poked your head out of the hole, looking around. He wasn't even holding your shell, he just stood there, his cane raised, using his angel powers to keep you afloat. Your eyes met, and you smiled. Well, hello there. He then set you down on the ground, and then squatted down next to your head. What is a cute little thing like you doing in my lake? And what have you been doing to my ducks? He asked. Cute? You had seen your body. You were grossed out by it. You had been so taken aback, you didn't even blush. Well, not that it would be visible. Your new demon blood had a silvery color. Listen, you can spend all day in there. You deadpanned. You could. Fine, let me rephrase. You shouldn't spend all day in there. Aren't you hungry? Why are you talking so nice to me? He sighed, though it was more of a groan. You sinners are all so mistrusting. Maybe if you managed 5 minutes not murking each other. He stopped mid-sentence. Sorry, I didn't mean that. My daughter Charlie always says to judge each soul individually. So, I guess... I'm trying. It's just a bit difficult, you know? Because we're in hell? Lucifer crossed his arms. Yep. Because we're in hell. You're a smart one. It's common sense. You grabbed your shoulder awkwardly. So, can you come out now? Trust me, I can be very annoying and very demanding. You will leave that eventually. Silence. I never crawled out of my shell in front of someone. With his dumb expression, he realized that he definitely would not let up. He more than likely would not throw you back into the lake either, as you had eaten his fish and destroyed his rubber duckies. Mostly as a misguided attempt at self-preservation, but then again, you were hungry. Defeated and with your head hanging low, you crawled your way forward. Your appendage was long. Overall, you should be roughly the size of Charlie if you were to fully spread out, thought Lucifer. Your back was arched, and your long fingers folded for more grip strength. But it didn't take Lucifer long to state the obvious. You're naked. I was stuck in a cave for God knows how long. Wait, is saying God knows how long offensive down here? Lucifer shrugged. It was then you noticed he was looking away with a massive blush. Lucifer? He put a hand next to his cheek to not look at you. Yes? Finally, you realized what was going on here. You positioned your right arm beneath your tummy, balancing your heavy slug body on it while placing your other over your chest. While your orbs had no butts, the fact your body still had their shape was enough to make you feel embarrassed regardless. I'm sorry. Do you have clothes that fit me?
Actually I do.
He said after a few seconds of silence.
I do. My daughter has left some clothes in her room. You can wear one of those. I'm sure she wouldn't mind.
Here, I can pick... He stopped himself halfway, bowing down to pick you up. Sorry, I got a little excited there. Huh? You hung your head. I can crawl. Well, that's a little embarrassing. I wouldn't want you to crawl. But also telling you to wait here felt wrong somehow. If you want, you can pick me up. Not that I can do anything against that. You're Satan.
Well, it's Lucifer.
But yeah, okay. He stepped back awkwardly before rubbing the back of his head. It's just, there's a problem. What would that be? Oh. I'm assuming you don't know how your body works. See, your body secretes this slime. I'm sorry. No, it's not the slime that's the problem. It's what the slime does. See, as your body dries, your body will put more and more hormones into the slime as it's having difficulty diluting it. In short, when I touch you, I will start feeling how you feel. Just more intense. It's a defense mechanism of your kind. Basically, when a big hellborn tries to devour you and the slime is in their mouth and they feel your fear, the chance they spit you out and run away is actually quite big. It's like, feeling your feelings times 10. Makes sense. But just as you let your head hang low again, he picked you up without warning. You squeaked, immediately hiding your chest and placing a hand on your face. Well, there we go. He huffed. You weren't even that heavy. Just the wetness of your body made you a little slippery. You felt his hands digging into your soft, flabby back as he started walking. You looked heavier than you are. Must be the no bones in your lower half and all of that. Something wrong? I'm embarrassed. He entered the castle, imagining to not bump your head on the doorframe. And with a pleased smile, he thought, well, that is already going better than with Lilith. Back then, she had carried him inside, and he was the one who bumped his head. He was glad that he didn't bump yours. He kept his breathing quiet and controlled, thinking that this would prevent the effects of your slime. But as it started seeping through his white cloth gloves, his skin began to tingle. Curious. He wasn't a demon, and yet still he could feel the effects. Though considering the secretions were meant to deter predatory hellborn in the cold storage, it definitely needed an immediate and not to mention strong effect. And he wasn't sure if his blush was due to experiencing a mere sliver of the flusteredness you were feeling, or if these were his own feelings, and he was immune. It was actually a little exciting, really. His heart began to pound as his expression became softer and gentler. Though he could tell he was being influenced by something, but it wasn't what he was expecting. He imagined, the moment I pick her up, I feel a little anxiety and a little embarrassment. But no, this was a different feeling. Feeling of flusteredness. Just a bit of humiliation and a slight tingle between his legs. Meanwhile, you continued shaking his arms, and he didn't even mind his coat being covered in your slime anymore. At first he did. That was one of the reasons he had hesitated just to pick you up, but then a bead of sweat ran down Lucifer's forehead. So, he only barely managed not to stutter. How long have you been in hell? Was there any indicator? You pursed your lips in thought and then moved the hand covering your eyes a little to free your mouth. Well, I suppose it's been a few months. I could hear church bells, or just bells in general. They rang to what felt like maybe every 12 hours. Could be 6. I spent most of my time asleep in my shell. I never tried finding the village or town the noises belonged to, for understandable reasons. I see. I suppose snail women aren't that sociable, huh? Or at least I couldn't lift or move with my house. It just was safer in there. This is the first I've ever been away from it. He could feel your shiver. Well, most of your kind are frail and very feral. It's actually surprising to see you can talk. Feeling called out, you lowered your hand on your face. I mean, people take time to go crazy. You crossed your arms over your chest. I was lonely, scared, hungry, but it takes time, I think. Some people lose their minds quicker, some slower. I did talk to myself a lot. Lucifer shrugged. Well, I suppose when you're immortal, going crazy after like 10 years feels like minutes. I learned I was in hell from the poachers, looking for demons like me. For skinning, and for my slime. I was lucky they were taking a break close to my shell so I could listen to them, and thankfully they looked horrifying enough to not immediately approach them. If they looked more like humans, I might have sprinted out towards them, out of curiosity, or out of loneliness. But I'm glad I didn't. He smiled painfully. He could feel your despair at the recollection of your memories. As thanks to the slime, his brain made connections to himself. Connections that weren't there. It was like suddenly he felt as if he had known you for hundreds of years. It scared him a little, because he knew why he felt this way, but he didn't want to resist it. It was just too comforting of a feeling. And here we are. He finally stepped, stopping in front of a pink door with a heart symbol on it. My daughter Charlie's room. He carried you inside. Mostly because he didn't want to let go of you, but also because he didn't want you to slime up the floor. Eventually, though, he decided to sit you down on an uncushioned plastic chair. As you looked around, he approached Charlie's dresser. It was an adorable little room, but also looked quite artificial. And as your gaze lowered, you realized why. Under the bed were a bunch of items, such as makeup kits and various boxes, headphones, an old phone, and other more teeny stuff. So Lucifer must have redecorated the room to a time where Charlie was younger, probably as a coping mechanism for her being gone. To mentally return to a time when his daughter was a happy little child. You don't mind wearing something of my daughter, huh? No, not at all, I think. It's just, the slime. Right. He looked at you and blushed, immediately turning back to the neatly folded clothing pile. Get it together, Lucy. You're in Charlie's room with a stranger. He looked to his left as if there was a little devil on his shoulder. An attractive stranger, I admit. As if to justify his feelings, he thought, an attractive stranger who slimed you with horny juice. He looked down at his slime-coated clothes. Could you really blame him? Would you be more comfortable if we waited for the slime to be gone? Just dry yourself up a little bit? Sure, I suppose. He grabbed her shoulder awkwardly. Well, okay then. He then turned around, keeping his gaze at the lower end of your slug tail. An awkward silence then followed. He wasn't sure of what to say. Until you said with a slight smirk, I know what you want, Lucifer. You muttered. What I mean is I wouldn't be opposed to it. Remember what I feel, you feel? You smirked. And considering what I feel, you feel 10 times worse. Well, that speaks volumes of your self-control. Trust me, there's a reason I'm down here. He chuckled darkly in response to that. And so Lucifer stepped forward, unbuttoning his slimy jacket and shirt, throwing them on the ground. Prim will take care of that. And then your eyes widen in surprise. Lucifer wasn't buff, but he had impressively tight musculature. It was actually a little feminine looking. He picked you up again, and almost immediately inhaling as your slimy, soft body pressed against his. Lucifer's eyes dilated as he stared at the wall for a moment. Now he understood why snail women were hunted. Is something wrong? You didn't get to finish that sentence as he kissed you on your mouth, his tongue almost immediately plunging into you. As you felt his gentle touches moving over your smooth, wet skin, while you felt his incredible warmth and the divine energy coming from his body like electrical trickles. Your hands gripped the back of his head tightly. His gloved hands, they felt so rough against your skin it was like being rubbed by a coarse towel, covered in slippery oil. It made your body shiver in delight. You couldn't handle it. After so long without human contact, and then immediately thrown into a romantic encounter, every touch, every wiggle of his tongue, feeling his hands press against your chest and squeezing. With a delighted grin, Lucifer threw you on Charlie's childhood bed. He heaved through his mouth and then opened his belt. Thank you for watching my video until the very end. And I would like to remind you to please like and subscribe and comment something down below. I read every comment you write to me and I try to reply to them as often as I can. But before we say goodbye, I would like to shout out all of my lovely darling stewards who so graciously support my 3rd tier membership. Husky HD 17, Hopeful, Castella Misery, Bree, Zoe, Ikea, Mystic Jade 111, Annabelle R. Contreras, Giovanni Moriarty, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, BitBit, Melofia, Anonymous Weep, and Nicodemus D. Thank you so much for your continued support. And finally, I'd like to thank all of my lovely darling mates for also supporting me financially. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, and please remember to like and subscribe.